Well, hi, Laura.
Hey John, how you doing?
I'm pretty good, thank you. It's been a nice, busy week already. How have you been?
Great. I've been good too. I was away and now I'm back, and so there was lots to catch up on, but
Always
I'm
is,
good.
isn't there?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I think I was catching up and wasn't even away. So I'm hoping I'm catching up. That's part of everybody's work, though. That's part of everybody's situation.
Right. There's always a lot to do.
Yes, indeed. A lot of good things. Now, last couple of times we've gotten together for our podcast, um, we've talked about positivity and a little less general each time. And today we're picking up with the tail end of last time where we were talking about what are some practical things that makes positivity workable, walkable, talkable, practical. And so we're going to go into something along the line of big term for it is boundaries at work, you know, and that that could be a little intimidating. What do you think?
Well, I also think it could be a little confusing too, because what exactly are boundaries?
Yeah.
And boundaries. So yeah, would like to spend some time. How do you apply those at work? How do you maintain that positive outlook at work while you are setting boundaries? I think, oftentimes we think of boundaries as a negative. We think of boundaries as a big no, but boundaries are really are what you say no to and what you say yes to. So it also involves, yes, what you agree to do, and to really break that down to figure how you can how you can use boundaries to be successful, to be positive at work, so you can feel comfortable at work. I think is
Yeah.
a good way to think about boundaries.
Boy, that's a good statement. I think you're right because I think setting boundaries, keeping boundaries, understanding that everyone has them, they're to be respected and understood, creates the happiest work environments that we ever come across. Because people have a high degree of respect for themselves and a high degree of respect for other people, those who have boundaries, those who understand boundaries and pick up on them. They're more relaxed, they're calmer, things are more predictable, and expectations are clear, as we usually talk about. So maybe we could get into a little bit of that on setting boundaries. One of the things that I think of, sort of a rule of thumb that I use a lot when I get into thinking about boundaries, um, it starts with the idea of healthy versus here's what I want, here's what I need. I'm going to give you a list of things. Not so much that is me staying healthy for me. Now, that sounds perhaps self centered, but the thing is, most people are outward focused to begin with and they sacrifice themselves. And those are not boundaries. Those are passive aggressive, other kind of things that disrupt. But boundaries smooth out a lot of the rough road. The thing that I like to encourage people to do is think in terms of what's healthy for themselves, because I tend to think of it as what is healthiest for me becomes healthiest for others. We're not
That's
talking
it.
selfish. Go ahead.
I was going to say I really like that. Can you say more about that?
Yeah, healthy to me is if you can think lower anxiety, lower depression, lower anger. What do I need to stay in a state like that and more productive at work and serving others, helping others, doing the things I need to do? A lot of that comes from, as we're going to get into, a lot of things about understanding and expectation and things of that nature. But that's sort of the healthy for me. And if I maintain it, other people pick up on where I say yes, as you were mentioning, where I say no, and what works for me, and they tune into that. And it's almost like they have to be healthy in order to speak to me.
And
Because
they have to speak to you, and when they understand what's healthy for you, and when they see you modeling that, then the likelihood of them treating you in that way is going to be in a healthy fashion is going to be higher.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Now, I'm going to use an example that starts out sounding negative, but it turns out with a very happy ending here. I've seen it happen time and time again. Talking to somebody who in their environment was getting run over. All right. This was a work environment. This guy was getting burned out pretty bad. And I started asking him, what's going on at work? And he was just getting stretched out. Everybody was asking him to do everything. And we started talking about how unhealthy that is for him. So he started adopting the mindset, well, what is healthy for me at work? I love work. I love people. I love what we do at work. Really enjoyed it. And he'd moved from a long way away to the city where he was working in, and was really enjoying all of that. But it was starting to get threatened by feeling overrun by the circumstances and overwhelmed. So we began talking about things like what you mentioned, which is job description, and you think well about that, and began to say, well, why don't you talk to the boss? In other words, think of what's healthy for you, talk to the boss about what's healthy for you, and say, hey, how would it be if I began to say no to some of these things and redirect people to other people I know are fully capable, or train them to do it themselves? And the boss said, man, that's a great idea. I didn't know you were so overwhelmed. Instantly, he's in a state where he's thinking about what's healthy for him, and other people begin to think about what's healthy for him too.
Well, and I think that's an excellent example of being able to reduce your stress and improve the functioning of the whole work group, because this individual took responsibility for his piece, was able to do some self-reflection and determine what is healthy. So, and understanding that it's not a requirement to say yes to everything. And, when you have a lot of passion for your work and a lot of interest in things, it's hard to put things off or to not jump in if it's something that you really enjoy doing. So you have to be able to self-regulate and understand when you're overcommitting, and to be able to take responsibility for that piece and then speak up, because most leadership isn't wanting to burn their employees out. They want them to be able to function at a high level, and there's everyone has limits. So being able to recognize what your limits are, and then coming up with solutions in delegating some of the work, training others to do some of the work, that too is all part of a good solution to when you feel burnt out or overwhelmed, when it's time to establish a boundary.
I like what you say about saying yes, because so many times people at work are just like they are at home. They're pleasers. People will get a certain job because they think they can help people in that job or that line of work, or they take certain jobs and their nature is to help people. So they want to please everybody. And before you know it, they've said yes to, like you were saying, yes to absolutely everything. And yes no longer becomes positive.
Exactly. It becomes a punishment.
Like a self-punishment?
Yeah. I mean, that it's no longer enjoyable. It's that it will lead, it's not healthy, if we're staying in that, and not realistic to say yes to everything. And there's really more enjoyment, more opportunity for positivity if you limit the things you say yes to. And also say yes to the things that are in line with your job description. Say yes to the things that are in line with your career aspirations. Some project may seem very exciting to you, but it doesn't have any relevancy to what you're doing professionally. So it wouldn't be something you would want to say yes to. So being selective and in terms of what you agree to do.
Yeah. Listening to you, it reminded me of a time I was speaking with a woman, and keying in on this, what's healthiest for you becomes healthiest for others, and how you're talking about job description is really powerful too. In another work situation where a woman she worked at the Board of Education in this city, and she manned the desk and was the sort of the office manager, routed all phone calls to the right people, and was a very sweet soul and wanted to please everybody and sort of held people up on pedestals to where she would just say yes to everything and took on all responsibilities. Even, and this sounds a little trite maybe, but even filling the Coke machine.
Hmm.
And she was getting older. It was harder for her to carry those cases in, to go get them. It was cutting into her time. They were getting busier and busier. And I asked her, well, how did you become a part of this? Is that in your job description? She said, no, they just work so hard. And I said, well, it sounds to me like you're working hard too. And if you're working that hard, you might be saying yes, but not yes to your own health. So
Mhm.
if you're going to be healthy, what do you think would happen if, like, for instance, you told me Mr. Smith comes in and out a lot, and he's very nice to you and very respectful. Sometimes we can yes people into thinking we want to do all that, and then they let us because they're trying to be nice and they don't want to step on our toes, even though they'd be glad to do it themselves. And I said, what would happen, you think, if you asked Mr. Smith to start bringing some drinks in? Oh, I don't know. He'd probably do it. So why don't you give that a try and see how it works? Next time we talked, she had asked him and he started taking that on himself because he's out all the time and she's not. That was completely lifted from her and he felt great, like he was serving her now.
Mhm.
It was really
That's
nice.
a great example. I think you bring up, oftentimes we think of people who say yes all the time as people pleasers. I think there's really another variable that comes into play here, is it feels good to be competent. And so when you take on projects that you can be successful, or sign up to do something that gives you that really boost of self-esteem. And so the challenge, though, is recognizing their limits to those to your own energy, and to be have enough self-awareness that although you could do that very well, it just the payoff is not worth the effort. So although it may feel good to bring in drinks for the whole office because you get lots of positive feedback for that, um, the energy it takes for you to do that is not worth the effort.
Yeah, I think that's a really good insight. We want to be competent and do things that proves that, helps us understand how
Mhm.
we're growing. It can come in all sorts of shapes and sizes at work. Um, what about expectations, clear expectations, communicating expectations? How does that be positive? What do you think?
Well, I think it's essential in a functioning work group to have clear expectations so that people know who is doing what and who is responsible for particular assignments. And so when the expectations are clear, there's it's a smoother operation. There's less chaos, there's less trouble, that people can function better.
Yeah. There's something interesting occurs to me as you talk about that. I was talking to somebody with a certain company, and as far as who does what, it's pretty clear, but they're a bit short-handed at times, which puts too much workload on people. I think another part of expectation is the not just the what people do, but how. How, such as respecting other people and respecting yourself in the process. That's sort of like that. What's healthiest for me becomes healthiest for you. Is how do you? I think one of the things about being positive and being healthy is expressing expectations of respect.
And that is a critical workplace agreement or ingredient, excuse
Yeah,
me, that you do need to be able to be respectful of others and of yourself.
yeah, yeah. That's really where I guess where boundaries hit everyday practice is we set our own and our own expectations to be respectful, because a lot of our internal language, remember, we've been talking so much about positivity, we can be so self-negative and so outwardly positive that it's important that we be self-positive. um, you had a term for that, in one of our previous conversations, that I thought was really good. Self-compassion.
Self-compassion. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That whole scheme of being caring for yourself.
Right. And that
Yeah.
really is what boundaries are all about. It's caring for you.
Hmm.
It's caring for the self. And when you do that, it's easier to care for other people.
Yeah. 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 You have that left over to do that. And other people find out how to care for you when you set these boundaries.
Right.
The kids grow up when you set boundaries with them. The bosses behave better when you set boundaries with them. Your employees who reports to you are better and more productive when you set boundaries with them.
Right.
It helps everybody.
It does. And, in the workplace, when you're clear with your expectations and you speak clearly and you act clearly and you speak when your boundaries have been violated, it just goes a lot more smoothly.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit? Because I'm thinking about just sort of as we sort of move toward wrapping up, because I think we've hit some really good points that are very, I hope they're very clear to everybody about the boundaries and expectations, responsibilities, job descriptions, staying within all these bounds that are so important for us. Um, Part of being positive is caring for the self. Can you think of some specifics? Because you always come up with these creative ways of doing this. Self-care in the workplace. Maybe we can talk about that a little bit, to where you, like you were talking about, you do certain things to bring back some energy, fight off burnout, and replenish and things of that nature. What do you think of?
Well, I mean, kind of what comes to mind is, in the line of self-compassion, of, pacing yourself, also picking the times of day. I know for myself, I tend to be, my productivity peak is in the morning. And so if I
Mhm.
have a challenging task or reports or something that I need that requires focus and concentration, that I do those activities in the beginning of the day, because I know that's when I'm going to be my best, and that's, where I'm going to be as productive as I can be. Um, it's also important to take breaks and to get up, and get out of your work setting, particularly for, many people who are still working remotely. Go outside, take a walk. So I think those are important self-care. Other ideas is to have some visual reminders around your workspace of pleasant memories, either pictures of family or friends or trips you've taken or places you want to go, things where you can take sort of a mini vacation in your mind, and just sort of break the focus and the concentration. Um, for some people to have, appealing to the other senses, have candles burning if you're, in an environment where you can do that. Have music playing or something that is soothing. But again, um, and then recognizing your limits. I think the other part of self-care is asking for help, knowing you know, when you need help.
Yeah, one of the common healthy ways of asking for help is, um, if you could help me with this, tell me what I can help you with. Make an exchange, an interaction out of it, to where you feel like you're helping other people by doing that, and being a part of a team, and the whole flow of things. And that creates a whole culture in and of itself, to where we can all rely on each other. And if you're sharing the burden, sharing the care, it just seems lighter
Right, right.
overall. Yeah, sure does. Sure lightens the load.
Hmm.
Um, so setting boundaries, which is a scary thought because it means telling people how you feel and what you want to do, can actually be a real integral part of being positive and staying positive, happier, more energetic, more resilient in your workplace, right?
Well, I mean, it's the really setting boundaries, telling people what you need and want is positive, because it's really self-care. It's being your own advocate, and it's being proactive. It is contributes to resiliency.
Yeah. I I'd love for somebody who's watching to give it a try, get back with us through the comments below and things, and just let us know how it goes. That would be really great. We got a comment from last time, just a affirming comment about the content of the positivity is very helpful for somebody. And it would be really interesting to have somebody, okay, I'm going to give this a try. I've never done this. I've never spoken to I have people I can trust. I'm going to try it out and just watch how energizing this whole thing is, to find out that if you express this to somebody, they're going to reciprocate.
Right.
And if not, you set a different kind of boundary with them, that they're dangerous. And
yeah.
And that's also very positive, and it's also very healthy for you, because you're going to be healthy. So you maintain health, other people will know that about you.
Yeah. And it's a way to get some information. Try it out and see. It's an experiment.
Yeah. Boy, it'd be good to hear from somebody.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks very much, Laura. Great insights.
Yeah, John, good discussion. This was fun.
Yeah, good to talk with you again. And we'll do it again soon. Maybe we can continue to think about practical things as we think about some ideas, some big ideas, because they tend to come to us on a regular basis, because the kind of work we do all the time, and keep moving in places, areas where it's practical. We want to be practical as well as create and inspire and create good ideas in everybody.
Right.
All right. Great work.
Okay. Thanks again.
All righty. Thank you. See you next time.